You know, for decades, high-speed rail in America has felt like this dream that's always just out of reach. While other countries were building these incredible networks, the US always seemed to be stuck in the slow lane. But something is finally starting to change. A brand new private sector model is popping up, and it might just be the playbook we've been waiting for to get America on the fast track. And it all starts with a pretty simple question. And that right there, that's the big paradox we're going to dig into. I mean, think about it. The United States put a man on the moon, basically invented the internet, but when it comes to just zipping between cities on a train, we've been completely lapped by the rest of the world. So why is that? And when I say lapped, I mean the gap is absolutely staggering. So on one side, you've got the US with basically one line, the Acela, which, let's be honest, only hits its top speeds for a tiny little stretch. And then you have China, which built a network so huge in just over a decade that it makes up 2/3 of all the high-speed track on the entire planet. This isn't just a small gap, it's a completely different universe. Okay, so if America were finally going to get serious and start to catch up, where would you even begin? Well, pretty much all the experts point to one place, the Texas Triangle. That 240-mile trip between Dallas and Houston is in this perfect sweet spot. It's just a little too long to be a fun drive, but it's also kind of too short to make all the hassle of flying worth it. It's the perfect laboratory for trying out a new American approach to rail. But, before we can really look at where we're going, we've got to understand how we got here. Why did the US fall so incredibly far behind in the first place? Let's just rewind the clock for a second. After World War II, there was this huge, and I mean deliberate, shift in this country. You had companies like GM and Standard Oil that were literally buying up local rail systems just to tear them down. And then the federal government went all in on the car, pouring billions into building the interstate highway system. So by the time the 60s rolled around, the job was done. America wasn't a rail country anymore. We were a nation of drivers. And wow, this chart right here, it just lays out one of the biggest consequences of that shift, the cost. It is just absurdly expensive to build this stuff in the US. We're talking more than triple what it cost in China, and way more than Europe. So what on earth is driving that number so high? Well, here's the thing. It's not just one problem. It's like a perfect storm of obstacles. You've got these incredibly powerful lobbies for the auto and airline industries. You have ferocious battles over private land rights. You've got environmental reviews that can drag on for literally decades. And on top of it all, a political system that just can't seem to provide consistent long-term funding. I mean, just look at California. A project that voters approved back in 2008 has seen its price tag balloon to a mind-boggling $128 billion. So yeah, it's a pretty bleak picture, but, and this is a big but, out of all that gridlock, a really surprising success story has emerged. And it's coming from Florida, of all places, offering a completely new way to do things. So, Brightline started with this, you could call it an unfair advantage. See, its parent company already owned the railroad corridor they needed between Miami and Orlando. That alone let them sidestep one of the biggest, most expensive, and most painful hurdles in the US, buying up all the land. They could just focus on upgrading the tracks, not spending years fighting in court for every single mile. But owning the land was just step one. The real magic here, the secret sauce, was a pretty clever financial tool called private activity bonds, or PABs. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Okay, so here's the quick and dirty on how it works. The government basically gives its stamp of approval to a project it thinks is good for the public. Then, Brightline goes out and issues bonds to raise money. But here's the kicker. The interest they pay to investors is totally tax-free. That makes those bonds super, super attractive, and it lets Brightline borrow billions of dollars from private investors at a much cheaper rate. And this right here was the political genius of their whole strategy. For decades, politicians in Florida had tried and failed to build public rail because voters hated the idea of using taxpayer money. Brightline's message was simple and it was powerful. Hey, we're a private company, we're building this with private money, you get this amazing train system and it won't cost you, the taxpayer, a single dime. And the result? It actually worked. The political fighting just fizzled out, the trains got built, and guess what? People showed up. In just over 2 months, nearly 200,000 people rode that new line. This wasn't a theory anymore. This was proof it could be done. So the model works like a charm in Florida. The big question now is, can they do it again, but bigger, in the ultimate test case, Texas? And let me tell you, the dream in Texas is even bigger. We're not just talking about a faster train here. We are talking about a legit
205-mile-per-hour bullet train. Using that world-famous Shinkansen technology from Japan, it could connect two of America's biggest cities in under 90 minutes.
Now, the folks who are pushing for this, they paint a really compelling picture. A train like this could take something like 15,000 cars off the super congested I-45 highway every single day. It's a vision of a future for Texas that's faster, cleaner, and a whole lot more efficient.
But then you hear from people like Jody Berry, whose family has been on their land for generations. And for them, that vision is a total nightmare. See, unlike Brightline in Florida, this project needs to acquire all new land. And that means the route cuts right through family farms and homes, kicking off this deeply personal, deeply emotional fight over property rights.
And this right here really gets to the heart of the standoff. The promise is massive, no doubt, but the problems are just as big. You have that fierce local opposition. You had a leadership team that just vanished in 2022. And you have this giant $33 billion question mark hanging over the whole thing. It just goes to show, even with the new playbook, those old American obstacles, they haven't gone away.
And just when it seemed like the whole project was dead in the water, there was this wild plot twist. Amtrak, yep, the government-owned passenger rail company, suddenly stepped in. They've announced a partnership with the private Texas Central Group to try and get this thing moving again, which just blurs the lines between the public and private models even more.
Okay, so let's zoom out. You've got a private win in Florida, you've got this new public-private mashup in Texas, and there's another private line in the works from LA to Vegas. What does all of this actually mean for the bigger picture?
And that brings us to the big, fundamental question. Are we really seeing the beginning of an American rail renaissance? Or are we just watching private companies do what they do best, cherry-pick the easiest, most profitable routes and leave the rest behind?
Because the counter-argument here is that passenger rail isn't really a business. It's a public service. Think about our highway system. We don't demand that some rural road in Wyoming has to pay for itself, right? We all kind of understand that taxes from a super busy interstate help pay for that rural road, because the goal of the whole system is to connect everyone. The idea is that profits from a busy route like LA to Vegas should help fund a less popular one from, say, Salt Lake City to Boise.
For the better part of a century, America put all of its chips on the automobile. The government just failed to build a real rail alternative. Now, the private sector is stepping up with a new model that, hey, seems to be working, at least on these really promising routes. But is this the beginning of a true rail renaissance that connects the whole country? Or is it just a clever new way to build a few shiny, profitable lines? The tracks are definitely being laid, but where they'll ultimately take us, that's still very much an open question.